Hello, my name is Lenny Vermoss, and my contact information was at the beginning of this video. I would also share that there's a document linked with the bit.ly Lenny V Dodeca that has lots of information related to creating a dodecahedron, which you're going to make. It has a student page for students to help, as well as teachers' hints and templates for creating the dodecahedron. Today we're going to make talk about making a dodecahedron. You want to think of a dodecahedron as a 12-sided die. And some mathematical terminology, mathematicians call different shapes, and so we want to start with the face. The face is the flat side here. In this case, this is a regular pentagon. So we have the faces. The points are called vertices by mathematicians, and then we also have these lines here which are edges. Euler came up with an interesting formula that works for dodecahedrons as well as a majority of polyhedrons, and that is if you take the faces plus the vertices and subtract the edges, you will always get 2, which is kind of amazing when you think of all the different polyhedron that you can make. Dice, any size die, that Euler's formula works. So you can try it, and there's a little bit more information on that as well for the students to try. All right. You can make 3 sizes, or I have made 3 sizes. You could actually make any size you wanted. This is a medium size. I have a small size, and with decorations, you can decorate. This one I used a Christmas theme, so you can decorate it as Christmas. This is a smaller one. And then I did a larger one as well. The larger one, each year when I was teaching 8th grade, I would make the dodecahedron, and then the students would sign it. And then I would put that up for a year because the students I had around for 4 years after I had them in 8th grade. So that is an option. You can also make your dodecahedron into a snowflake, so you can decorate with snowflakes. Or I'm a Husker fan, so you can decorate it with your favorite sports themes. So you have a lot of different ways you can do it, and it all depends on the size of the pentagon you start with. This is a 2-inch, which makes a larger one. This is the medium-sized one, and this is a small one. Right? So depending on what you start with. So you start with your pentagon pattern, and you create a net, and the instructions for the net are on the video a little bit later. But so you create a net, and then it works best to decorate it if you're going to draw on it while it's flat, and then fold it together. If you're going to paste things on, it's probably a little, you can paste them on, or you can wait until it's folded and paste them on. All right? The other thing I would share is that to make your template, when I was in 8th grade, we made the template using a compass and a protractor. So we drew a circle, and then we measured the angles to create our template. We also then created and went from there. With younger students, you may not want to go through that. It takes a little bit while to do, but you might want to just use the created template, which I have on the document that is linked. One of the first things that you need to do to make a regular pentagon is to construct a circle. The circle that I've constructed is 2 inches in radius with a diameter of 4 inches. You can use the traditional compass to make this, or you can use a compass like this, which is how I've constructed it. So you make your circle with a radius of 2 inches, and then what we need to do is we need to divide the circle into 5 equal pieces. And I'm going to start here and draw a radius in. And so each of my pieces, a circle has 360 degrees, so each of my pieces is going to be 72 degrees. So I'm going to put my protractor here, and I'm going to mark 72 degrees on my thing. This is where you really need to be exact, because if you don't get exactly 72 degrees, if I don't get a template here, where all 5 sides are exactly the same, when you go to fold and create it, you really end up with a mess when you start putting things together. So I like to make sure that you spend a lot of time here to make sure that you're very precise with the angles that you're creating, all right, and drawing these pieces. And as a check with my last one when I get done, my last one then, when I put it on here, should measure 72 degrees. When I'm done with that, then what I do is I just connect where each of those radiuses intersects with the circle, and I'm going to connect those lines. And when I get done, again, be very precise about making sure I get it exactly to the corner. But when I get done, I will end up with a regular pentagon. And again, regular means that all the sides are the same length. So each of the sides is the same length, and each of the angles on the inside here has a radius of, or excuse me, an angle of 72 degrees. So this angle is 72 degrees. Start using our regular pentagon pattern to make our dodecahedron net. Begin about a ½ inch off the bottom of your paper, a little bit to the right to allow room on the paper. Rather than tracing along the edge of the pattern, just to be more precise, I like to put dots on each of the corners and then take a straight edge and connect those dots. I'm using a pen. We'll talk later. You want to kind of use a sharp pen or pencil to kind of put some creases in the paper, and that way when you're folding your dodecahedron later, you'll be able to fold on those creases a little bit easier. Right. So this is my first one I make, all right? And then the next one I'm going to make is going to be in the center, and this is the center one at the bottom. And then around the center, I'm going to make the 5 pentagons that go here. Here is my center pentagon, and I made the 5 pentagons around the outside. I'm going with this one here, and then this is going to be the center one for my top one. So now I'll put 5 pentagons around the outside of that. Okay, we're now ready to put our tabs on, and basically you see how the net is arranged. And what we need to do is we're going to put a tab on every other edge. So I'm going to go tab, no tab, tab, no tab, tab, no tab, tab. Now, a couple things when you make the tabs that help. You want to keep them fairly about a ½ inch because you're going to be gluing those. The other thing, instead of extending this line straight, I'm going to angle it a little bit. So I'm going to angle in here. That just works a little bit easier when you go to fit them together so that edge isn't in your road. And I just draw a line here. I'm going to put another tab, no tab here, so I want a tab here. All right, so again, I'm going to angle a little bit from each side. All right, and then come across here. All right. Okay, as we're getting ready to cut out, a couple things I want to mention. When you're making your net, you want to make sure that speed is not something you want to do. You really want to be accurate and precise, because as I start folding this together, the more time that you've taken to make your corners and everything match, the better it is. And the only thing when you go to cut them out is you want to make sure when you're cutting that you cut up to these corners. So each of these times here, we want to cut up to these corners going through. Another thing that I like to do to make the creases a little bit harder is to take a compass, and along each of the edges where I'm going to be folding, if you just take this point, you can also use an X-Acto knife or something a little bit sharper, or maybe when you're using your pen, And what that does is that allows the crease to be a little bit more crisp on that corner when you're folding it. Here's what your dodecahedron net looks like when you get it cut out and completed. I went ahead, as I said, on each of the lines here. I took a compass and scored that a little bit, and you can see what happens when you do that is when you fold these, then it makes the corner a little bit sharper. It makes it a little bit easier to fold. And so I went ahead, and then you just go ahead and fold those. The fun part begins as you get to this point, because now what the students can do is they can go ahead and draw something on each of the faces. I have one here that I've drawn with some glitter, but they can go ahead and put whatever they want on the 12 faces. And we're ready to start gluing. A couple options on the gluing, and this is one time where you really want to make sure and take your time and let the glue dry, and this is a hard part. But I've used Elmer's glue before, but I used a glue stick this just for the first time when I did these, and the glue stick actually works pretty good. So I'm going to flip it over. And when you start gluing, what you're basically going to do is just take one of the tabs. You're going to put some glue on it, and then you fold it and hold it together. And then you just continue to go around. You have to hold it until the glue dries, and every once in a while you might have to take some time and let it set, and then just continue to glue it together. And then as you glue the tabs together, it basically folds into, and we'll take a look at what happens when you get to the last tab. But basically it just folds up into your dodecahedron. Okay, we're ready for the last step. I glued all these together. I did have very good luck with the glue stick, as it seems to dry a little bit better than the liquid glue that I've used in the past. I did see this in one of the videos I watched as a way to make it a hanger, and that is this last tab, I'm going to stick this in here when I get ready to glue. The other thing that I did do is I did kind of trim one side here, because as I come, just to adjust so it fits a little bit better. This last tab's a little tricky though, so I'm going to put glue on all the tabs at once. So I've got the 4 tabs, and then I'm just going to put these all together at one time, and then use a toothpick to kind of go inside to kind of push the tabs up so that they hold with the glue there.